Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here with Haviah Mighty, breakout success, Polaris Prize winner, JUNO Award winner for Best Rap Album, first Black woman to win both. Incredible. You're trailblaze, like you're just like blazing trails. So we're going to talk about that, but we're so happy to host you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
So my first question is always the same. How are you? And how have you been holding up as we emerge from the pandemic?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm definitely good. I think, through the pandemic, I've been lucky enough to be busy with work opportunities and whatnot. And it was probably it was the busiest summer that I've ever had. Kind of coming out of the pandemic, I was pretty much like out of town every weekend for shows, which was a blessing for me and for the team as well. At this current time, it's much more of a slower period than the last couple of months have been. So it's been a little bit more kind of getting my ducks in a row on the personal side, just kind of figuring out like workout routine, cooking more, looking for a house, those sorts of things. So it's nice to kind of be, able to balance those things this year from the artistic expression and what the needs of me as an artist are, and then as well what the needs of me as a person are. So 2022 is an insightful year for sure.
Amazing. I mean, and I love that, just sort of taking a step back to sort of just do life a bit and sort of see how you can sort of build that part of your life. My next question is about your career. So tell us about your career, like from your start in Brampton to making history at the JUNOs. That's a really great through line. So what has it been like?
Since the JUNOs or prior to that, or
from the very beginning, like when you first got like coming out of Brampton to the JUNOs to now, what has it been like sort of building out the trajectory of your career?
Yeah, it's been like, I feel like the journey, there's been different pockets of the journey. The journey started before I even moved to Brampton. I was in singing lessons for 7 years when I lived in Toronto. I grew up and was born in Toronto, so that's where everything started. But I was born in an area that was a little bit impoverished. It was also extremely white, and we were the only Black family. So the treatment in the first 8 years of my life was very interesting. I experienced a lot of racism, a lot of underdog experiences, I guess you could say, which is a lot of the content of a lot of the music that I've made on the Breakout project, 13th Floor. But yeah, those were my early kind of experiences with music. I was very infused in music. I have 3 older sisters who play the piano. We were all kind of in lessons in Scarborough. But the outer expression, it was definitely, something that, was family oriented. Once we moved to Brampton, I was about 9. Brampton was a lot more, at least the area that we moved to in Brampton was a lot more multicultural and safe and welcoming. So I was able to go to the park. I was able to start making friends. So social awkwardness, I definitely have a social awkwardness that comes from those first 8 years of just like literally only really having my family to look to. And my school experiences were rough as well. It was difficult. Those years were difficult. I was, they thought I had anger management and trying to put me in special programs and, not being seen, I guess you could say, for the person that I was until I moved to Brampton. And that very much became a part of my story because that move for me allowed me to start to experience life, probably a bit too late, but I started to experience life, make friends. I started doing very well in school. So much so that I went from, being, having like anger management issues and, C's and D's to like A's and B's and then IEP and put in a special program, for like enhanced and advanced learning, which carried me into grade 12. And the experiences in Brampton, being in choirs and doing music outside of my house now, also expressing my musicality with friends and people in school and the talent shows at school. I started to develop this kind of understanding of my type of expression. I started to rap at the age of 12. That was something I got really into through the internet. And all of these experiences kind of culminated to, I had made a couple of albums. I had made a project my first project was called No Studio. I was 17 years old in grade 12. And then it led to another project called 18. And then I did a third project called Dominant Seventh. And then I did a fourth project called Bass Loud. All of this was like grade 12, the year between college, I was creating all of this music and putting it out. but not understanding the business side. So I was making the artwork and learning how to put things on iTunes, but not monetizing anything, not really marketing it, but I was doing it. So I had 4 bodies of work under my belt, but still nominal success. You know, there were a couple moments of, you know, maybe remixes I'd done that got some accolades and stuff like that, or not accolades, but acknowledgement.
Yeah.
But there was no real intention behind what I wanted the music to do. I was just making it. So I had a full-time job pretty much throughout that experience, different jobs. I think things changed for me in 2016. I was invited to be a part of a cypher, which is like, you know, they give you a beat and a bunch of different rappers kind of like rap on the same beat. And I was invited to be a part of an all-female cypher for International Women's Day was the pitch. And I was like, okay, like no problem. Didn't really expect anything from it. And me and three other women, we brought our bars. I met them that day actually. And then we recorded it. And the next month it came out for International Women's Day. And it was very, very successful. It was probably my first true viral moment. I had other moments, but this was like millions of viewers on Facebook. And yeah, so when that cypher came out, actually I had 1 million views in 3 days. And I remember that being a pivotal moment in my career, because at the time I was working at the retail store Long and McQuaid, and a lot of the people in the comments were actually recognized me from my job. Like, isn't that the girl that works at Long and McQuaid Brampton? And they were like really validating the bars. It was a life-changing experience, because I always thought I could rap, but I never thought other people would think that I was as good as I thought I was.
Wow.
And so that moment, the comments, the amount of validation, the way the view, like I got 3 million views in 3 days, but also 2 million views in a month. So it was carrying on for about a month. It was active. I couldn't keep my phone battery going. It was an external validation that I unfortunately needed at the time. You know, and that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give artists is, if you can find ways to surround yourself with people, create art that allows you to validate yourself internally, it could be the pivotal moment you need. For me, I needed it externally for whatever reason. And I think it's a large part of, you know, our experiences in society, and me feeling like what society deems the gaze that Black women have in Canada is just not that favorable. So I think I needed other people to validate what I felt I already knew about myself, because I always believed society would never see it. So that cypher was the pivotal moment for me. Other people validating that I was good was like, oh, wow, like that means that I am. And again, I don't think that should have to be the catalyst, but it was for me. And my trajectory really pivoted at that moment in a business sense. So I was always making music, writing, creating. But at that point in time, I started looking at my business. I started looking at what emails I had on my social media platforms, what I was posting, how I was selling myself as an artist. I realized that I was posting like food on my Snapchat story. I was just living regular life. So at that point in time, I really changed my trajectory in terms of how I did my business. And I started setting real intentional goals. I do think intention is a big part of what is necessary for this journey. And for any entrepreneur, you have to have an idea of where you want to be. And so I started to realize, okay, if people think that I'm good at rapping, that means that they might listen to my album. But right now, they just think I'm a good rapper. And that year, I was invited to be a part of a lot of cyphers, which, you know, battle rap, which is kind of that was the onset. That was what they saw first. So I understand, but I'm not a battle rapper, like by nature. I'm an artist. And so I started to set a goal that I wanted to convert the people who liked the cypher to listen to songs. That was my whole thing. I was like, how do I get them to actually check out the actual songs? And I was very worried because that year, most of my opportunities came directly from the cypher, and they were the same nature. Like, let's get you in a room with a bunch of other rappers and we'll get you to headline it. But it was the same thing. It wasn't like me making songs. So I was like a bit worried about this box I put myself in. Wow. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make an album, and I'm going to make it within a year of this cypher. And I'm going to pull in all the people that know who I am through the cypher, and I'm going to like change the narrative. And that was where my project Flower City came in, which was largely inspired by my move to Brampton. Flower City is the nickname for Brampton. And my whole concept behind the project was, you know, a lot of my ideologies formulated after the age of 9 when I moved here.
Yeah.
And I wanted to very much kind of express the person that I was, or at least that I knew who I knew myself to be at that time. So I started working on that project. And so the cipher had come out March of 2016. And that whole year I started really setting goals. I was like, I would like to get grants so I could fund the next project. I want to make music videos. I want like maybe meet some booking agents so that I can start performing and start curating shows that are not specific to ciphers. I wanted to like get a manager. I started setting these goals and going to like mentorship cafes and attending all these things so that I could just get more insight. And every goal that I had set came true within a year. And it was like, it changed my life to not only set the goals, but to achieve these goals. So the first goal was the album. I put it out March of 2017. So pretty much a year after the cipher, I was able to get one grant for it. It was a factor grant. And it was the smaller like artist development grant for $2,000, but it was the first grant I'd ever achieved. And I was so happy to be able to kind of put money that I didn't slave for towards the art, because it allowed me to do more with the art. And then the third goal that I'd set was meeting booking agents. So I guess this was another goal, but I had my first event, my first in-person event. I had a release party for the release of that project. And I got 70 people in a room. I was so astounded by what I was able to do. I was my own DJ at the time. I DJ'd my set. I had this room of people surrounding me. And one thing I didn't mention was I actually joined a rap crew with the 3 women that were in the cipher. So while I was doing all of this solo stuff, it actually took about a year there was so much demand for the girls from the cipher. We became a rap crew called the Sorority. So wow. I was in this rap crew already. We were just starting our thing, but I put out this Flower City record. I had the Sorority come out. We performed as a group. And I remember I had some people in the room, and I ended up having a booking agent in the room. I don't remember seeing him, but he texted me the next day and he was like, that was incredible. I shouldn't be saying this, but I really want to work with you. So there's the third goal right there. I started working with this booking agent, and, he's like, it'll take months to kind of like get it all worked out. But like within a couple of months, he started seeking opportunities for me. And I remember my first gig was British Columbia. For me, it was like a plane, like what? So like that kind of fell into place. And then I remember him telling me, yeah, like I'll be your booking agent, but like whenever you meet your manager, that's going to be your best friend. You're never going to talk to me. You're going to talk to that person. They're going to help formulate your whole career, and then we'll build a team. He explained to me kind of how it would look, but I didn't really know how it would look. And then he invited somebody to come out to one of my shows when I performed Canadian Music Week of 2017. I performed a lot of the Flower City album, and I met a woman who eventually expressed interest in being my manager, who is my manager today. And that was the 4th major goal that I had set. So within a year and a half, all of the goals that I had set in the year of 2016 had come true. I had this project, I got a grant for it, I had a booking agent, I had management. And then that manager, we kind of started building relationships. And after I put out that project, Flower City, 2017 was kind of the Flower City year. Then me and the group Sorority, we actually made our own album. It was called Pledge. And 2018 was pretty much dedicated to the sorority. While that was happening, I was getting a lot of rehearsals, a lot of practices. I'm performing with groups. I'm songwriting from different perspectives. And we got some of my early cool live performance opportunities. So Winnipeg, Saskatoon or Saskatchewan, all these different kind of Canada-wide places I'd never performed. I did that with the sorority for the first time. And we had a manager, we did that. And I remember my team was kind of getting antsy, like, when are we going to work on something, And I was like, listen, 2019 will be I'll pivot back to doing a Haviah Mighty project. So while I'm working on sorority, I was working on my next album, which became 13th Floor. And most people started to be familiar with me off of the strength of that project. That project afforded me the ability to leave Long and McQuaid, where I'd worked for almost 4 years at that time, and do music full time. The album came out in May, and it won the Polaris Music Prize in September. So feels like an overnight success, but obviously from the story that I'm telling you, I had been creating before I even moved to Brampton, I have art that you can find online from 2009 on YouTube. So I was actively building towards this. But then when people heard about me, it was like within 3 months, that album had done something I'd never been able to do with any piece of art I'd ever created. And the cool thing about the Polaris Music Prize is that it's an award that acknowledges the best body of work in Canada for that year. And if you recall, one of my biggest goals was, I don't want to be a rapper, I want to be an artist. It was literally like the perfect thing to solidify that I was not just a rapper, because I am a rapper, but I'm an artist. And it was like also like the award acknowledges like the artistic merit of an album as well. So to have it be acknowledged in that realm was like everything that I wanted to achieve. It put me in the conversations I wanted to be in, and it opened up the box I thought that maybe I put myself in. And it was the catalyst that allowed me to stay full-time as a musician. And what did I put out next? I guess the next project I put out was my last project. So I put out 13th Floor in 2019. And then the pandemic happened within a couple of months. I didn't even have a year off of the strength of the Polaris. And I had a very momentous year planned for 2020 because a lot of cool opportunities came. So I was going to start going into the US. I'd done Sway in the Morning. In fact, when I did Sway in the Morning, it was the same month of the lockdowns. So I had plans to like perform in California, all these things. And the universe said no. I remember my next big performance was South by Southwest. I had 4 shows. It was my first time. I was going to go to Texas, and the universe said no. And it was very devastating, because for me, it was like, wow, like I just finally achieved all these lifetime kind of goals. And now it's not specific to me, but no one can achieve their goals. Like I saw people like that were, had tours. Jessie Reyes had a tour. I think she was supposed to tour with Billie Eilish, and like that was canceled. Like opportunities that were like first time opportunities for other people, they weren't able to do. And I was like, well, I'm not putting out an album now. Like this is not the market. This isn't how am I supposed to market an album if I can't go to new markets and if I can't make like face-to-face conversations or contacts? So my alternative was, well, I'll just make singles. I'm just going to make like individual songs. That's not a body of work, because I just couldn't envision how to market an album in that landscape. So I started working on some songs, and I started putting out those songs near the end of 2020. So November was the first song I put out, December, second song, and then January, February. By the time March came around, by the time I put out the 5th song, I started to feel like it felt like maybe an album. I was like, these songs sort of feel like a body of work, but I was like, maybe not an album, maybe more like a collection of songs. So I called it a mixtape. And I started to recognize that what I was rolling out was a non-traditional mixtape. So it was coming out in a different way. So month to month to month to month for an entire year, from November to November 2020 to 2021, I put out a song. It was very difficult. I'll never do that again. But every month we put out a song. And then we started to understand that it was a body of work. I put a name to it, and just, continued to roll it out. And that was complete, like that technically released November of 2021. November of 2021, I got very sick. And I wasn't even able to market the project the way I wanted. I had a whole release party planned, a show, I had to cancel it. I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and I didn't feel like I was able to do the project justice, because at the end I was in the hospital. I wasn't able to go out, and the world kind of started opening back up around that time. So I wasn't able to do what I thought the project deserved. So I thought like I missed my window on Stock Exchange was the name of the project. But I did work very hard on it for over a year. I did really think the songs were quality. We had beautiful artwork, but there's certain things we wanted in place. We wanted vinyl, done and all this stuff. And when my health pivoted, it was serious enough that I couldn't focus on that. So I really thought that project would not do what my last project did. I thought 13th Floor was going to be like, how am I ever going to top that? I was a little bit depressed over that. But as I started getting better, I started to get some opportunities that were unrelated to the project. I did Colors in December. I was playing with the Arkells a lot. And as that was happening, I'm starting to, I'm getting my health back, and I'm starting to think about working on a new project. And as I'm playing these shows and thinking about what's next, I find out that Stock Exchange is nominated for a JUNO. And it's like, we don't realize sometimes how much we've already planted these seeds, because the year of 2018, when I was working on sorority stuff, I actually did a program called the JUNO Masterclass individually. And it was a program that gets artists kind of ready, JUNO ready. And it's like a week, and they kind of give you a bunch of training. You go to the Facebook offices, you do mentorship, all these different things you do. And I did that program, and then didn't realize that the teachings I was applying over the next couple of years. So you think about, and I went to the JUNOs in 2019 before 13th Floor even came out. So I saw what it was like. And interestingly enough, my management team manages an amazing artist. His name is Jeremy Dutcher. And I got to go to, he's an incredible singer, indigenous artist. And I got to go to the JUNOs where I saw him win. I saw him perform, but I was in the audience. But I saw, as a part of my team, I got to see what that was like. So I was like, wow, this is the future. So full circle, now it's 2022, I get nominated for the JUNO, and all of these things I kind of seen, it's like I had manifested it. They asked me, first I was nominated, then they asked me to perform. That was like a life-changing moment for me. And then the other moment was that I won. And then I also won Best Rap Album of the Year. And I'm also the only woman in the category. Again, the first Black woman to win in this category. So of course, life-changing once again. It's like, of course, as an artist, in the back of my mind, it's like, how do I top the Polaris, right? Then I win the Prison Prize. In between 2018 and 2022, I won the Prison Prize as well for a song I have called 13, which is, it's kind of like Polaris, but it acknowledges music videos. So that was also a very, very big win. I ended up getting $10,000, $20,000. 10,000 went to the director, 10,000 went to me. We actually ended up, I created an initiative for Black entrepreneurs, and I just gave all of it to these entrepreneurs. So we were able to kind of give back to the community, but it's like, well, what's next? The JUNOs was the pinnacle. And because I didn't think the album had what it deserved marketing wise, it just wasn't even on my radar. But of course you always apply, you just always apply. And so to win, I didn't expect, So after that, JUNOs happened, that was May of this year. Of course, now it's like, well, what's next? So, I'm working on music. I'm already in the midst of the new music. But I would say the last thing that kind of happened that reminded me that you never know when the trajectory doesn't stop until you do, is out of nowhere, I was nominated for a BET Hip Hop Award. And that one, I don't know how that happened. I'm going to be honest. I think, again, it's manifesting and planting seeds. I think sometimes you just don't know where they end up. Somebody had messaged my manager 2 weeks before I found out about the nomination, saying, this is so-and-so BET, we've heard about Haviah Mighty, we've loved her music for years, and we're looking forward to working together. And I honestly thought that it was a troll. I didn't believe it, because that's an international entity, and I'm still very much working on Canada. So it just didn't seem like anything that I don't like to get excited about things unless it's real. So I read that, I didn't really mean anything. And then 2 weeks later, I was scrolling on Twitter, Haviah Mighty nominated for Best International Flow. I literally messaged my manager, is this real? And I sent her the print screen, and she's like, hold on, I'm on the phone right now. I just found out about this. And it was real. It was real, so real. I actually had a performance in Denmark the day of the BET Awards. Had to cancel that. I was in the UK. I still had a performance the day before in London. And so I still kind of did that tour. I performed in LA, all of the plans we had, I still did. And then, but we planned everything around being able to immediately, after that show, straight to Atlanta. We went to the BET Hip Hop Awards. I did not win the award. And an amazing artist from France, he won the award. But to be acknowledged within that group, first of all, I was the only representative for Canada in the room, because that nomination was Best International Flow. So you had 2 people from France, 2 people from South Africa, maybe Zimbabwe, there's one other place, and then Canada. I was the representation for Canada. So it's while I didn't win, not only is my name a part of the conversation, but also Canada is more a part of the conversation, at least as per the hip hop awards, you know? So I went and I was like, okay, like, it's not even about whether or not I win, it's about making a statement in the room. So I, you know, curated a really show-stopping outfit, you know, we made sure we got some good pictures, and, you know, just tried to make a good impression in the room and show people I'm serious, because you are going to see me again, probably next year, you will see me again. And that's, you know, the impression I wanted to leave behind. And yeah, that was the last kind of big thing that we've done. Now I'm back home. I've been home since early October, and I'm actively working on, I have a music video that will be coming out soon. I have a single that I put out September 23rd called Honey Bun that, you know, is doing quite well in terms of my growth as an artist. So, you know, some artists, their first, like, their biggest window of opportunity is streams. Maybe they get lots and lots of streams. For some people, it's their personality, right? Maybe they get a lot of people on their Instagram live stories. For me, it's my live shows. That's where I pull in the majority of my fans, and where I find I get a lot of growth. So obviously the pandemic hurts for an artist like me, but I've very much been working on my streams. And I think because of the type of music that I make, it is hip hop, but there is an aspect of niche to it. I feel there's an aspect of education that goes into my music. So it's not like the type of music that's going to just mainstream, get the most. I don't want kind of the quick rapid success, because if I wanted that, I'd be a very different artist. I'd brand myself very differently. We can all see what kind of sells, right? I have no intention of making it the wrong way. I want to make it as myself. From the beginning, it's always been that. I want to be acknowledged for what it is I love to do, because authenticity is the only way for me. So I feel like I've been able to build my career up to this point, maintaining who I am as a person, keeping my authenticity intact. And I feel like I'm still on that trajectory. The new music that I'm making, I honestly believe, and it feels kind of like marketing, because I said this last year, but honestly, I feel it's the best music that I've ever made, even more than I felt that last year. I've brought people in to help with the things, because in the pandemic with Stock Exchange, I didn't really have a lot of help with that record, you know, because I wasn't able to get in the studio with anybody. Wow. So I was recording. I mean, I generally record my own vocals always, but I did a lot of the co-production myself. I just had less assistance than I even had on 13th Floor. So while that is a good thing, I kind of honed what I was really good at on Stock Exchange. I also learned where I would really love other people to help and kind of bring something else to the project. So the music I'm working on right now, I feel has all of the right moving pieces, from the music to also the artwork we're making. I have a lot of assistance. I'm able to get in rooms with other people and have healthy communication. So I think that that's very much helping with the curation of the new sounds. I had a very successful 2021, and we'll see about this year, but it's allowed me to continue to fund my art. So the music video that I have coming out is top tier. Everything feels very much top tier. And not at the expense of losing myself or selling myself in any way that I don't align with. So that is a long way, I guess, of explaining kind of what the journey has been from fruition to kind of where I am now.
Wow. I mean, so I love, like, that trajectory is incredible, but also just that sort of transition from like being an artist and being super focused on your craft, but then making sure you have that entrepreneurial lens. You're running a business, you're building a business, you're marketing, you're layering business and a business lens on top of everything that you do, which is phenomenal. So my next question is two-pronged. It's like, how difficult is it to build an audience? Like, you're doing a great job. There's lots of different ways you're doing it, but how difficult is it to build an audience long-term? And also, that's a direct line to the main question, which is, what is the music scene in Canada like? Like, is it supportive? And is it really like, how, like, you're living it, but is it really possible to build a global career in this country?
Okay, I'm just getting a little bit of content while we're talking here. That's the life of an artist. Sorry, the first part of the question again was,
like, how difficult is it to build an audience long term? And then that's a bridge into the other question, which is, what's the music scene in Canada like? Is it supportive? Is it possible to build a global career in this country?
So I would say it's very difficult. I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
I would say the most recognizable I've ever been is definitely now.
Yeah.
But I can still go out and have a good time and not like need a bodyguard. I mean, it's getting a little sticky at this point, but it's possible. It definitely is possible. I think that there are artists who are also doing it in their own ways. Artists that if I saw them at a venue, I would recognize them. So to be acknowledged in, to be acknowledged in this realm and kind of have that be what people know you to be or who people know you to be, it is possible. You just have to, it's not easy because the entities that kind of put you in that conversation in Canada are fewer and further between than I would say the US or possibly even the UK. We don't have big infrastructures like big interview platforms that if you do an interview with this person,
right,
it's going to solidify, right? Sway in the Morning was a big moment for me, but that's a US entity. If you go on Power 105, if you, do like certain, like, I don't remember the names, but there's certain entities in the UK that are also like this, like at One Extra and stuff like that, where if you do a freestyle there, there's going to be a certain amount of streams built in or a certain amount of views built in onto YouTube. Like, so it automatically gives you fans. We don't really have those types of entities. So I think that it becomes much more difficult when you're kind of active here to be involved in things that are going to reach that many people. Right. We just don't have that same infrastructure. So I think it is difficult because I've done a lot of big things in Canada, but they just translate differently than kind of those artistic entities within the US. If you do a certain, like if you do No Jumper, if you do an interview on No Jumper in the States, that's like a big platform, one of the bigger interview platforms right now. If you do that, you're probably going to get 500K views minimum, and you might hit over 1 million. And it's like kind of guaranteed because the platform has a built-in audience. So we just don't really have that. That kind of, it ties into the question of how hard is it specifically within Canada, because Canada's landscape, specifically with regards to hip hop, is very much lacking. So I don't know if you can do it without the US support.
Wow.
I think for me, what's happening is the US is finding out who I am through my Canadian success. But still, the opportunities that I do when I go to the US very much help to improve the conversation here in Canada, right? So I was able to do Sway in the Morning largely off of the strength of the Polaris, because their team was able to research the Polaris, see how big it is in Canada. And, I had a US PR assistant who reached out, but then they had to do the research and be like, okay, this is what it is in Canada. It was the strength of that conversation that probably made Sway say, okay, we could have this girl kind of come out. But I still had to go to New York, do that interview, do those rap bars. And then it translated back to my Canadian fans who already know who I am, right? But the entity is not Canadian. So, and I've done I've performed with, the Arkells lots and lots of times, but it's like the Arkells also need to go to the States, if that makes sense. You can see that they're not only touring Canada, because I think a lot of it is not only the Canadian infrastructure and landscape, it's lacking in Canada, specifically in hip hop, but I'd say in all genres. I think largely because the demographic is also like way smaller. You go to the US, you have 10 times the amount of people, and you have all these different pockets and regions. So you have more access. And then because of that, you also have more entities that have been developed and now exist within those different landscapes. So now you can target, I want to go to LA, I want to go to New York, I want to go to, Atlanta, and all of these markets have so many more people to reach than what Canada has. So is it possible? Yes. Like if I look at the Arkells, they're from Hamilton, Ontario. They're huge artists. When I've opened for them over 10 times, maybe 15 times, and I see what they're able to bring out, they're like thousands of people, right? So it's possible. Like if Max is walking down the street to Toronto, I'm sure people will recognize who he is. Like they, to me, are like, if they want to reach an international success, yes, you'll have to kind of push through to the US, but they're already like Canadian, like legend, right? So they've already done it, but there's a cap on what Canada, I find, can do, because at the end of the day, I think that they could be a bigger act if more people in the US knew who they were. And I would imagine playing in the US as they have done throughout 2022, I imagine that's part of their strategy. I don't know, but I would imagine they're not done yet. They've done so much groundwork, but they're not done letting people know, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do. And I think they're done in Canada though. Like, I think the amount of people, like one of the biggest shows that happened in 2021 was the show at the Budweiser stage. And that was like the first show that happened when we reopened the world. And I opened for that. And Budweiser, like that's wow. A lot of people. I can't even remember how many tickets were sold, but they did 3 nights back to back. And in total, almost 30,000 tickets, I think. So it's like, you guys are doing good. You guys are doing great. Like, they're playing again in Toronto on Friday night. Like, they're doing great. And I've seen it just from an opener perspective, being exposed to their audience and getting the opportunity to perform in front of those thousands of people. It's like, oh, okay, this can be achieved in the Canadian landscape. So there is a lot you can do here, but I do think there's a cap. And eventually, if you are doing certain things here, it will kind of pivot to international success. But I do think you kind of have to work the other markets to reach maybe the peak of what it is that you can do as an individual, because art isn't specific to a landscape, right? Wow, if it will do well here, it will do well probably in the US, it will do well in the UK. And that's not even where the conversation ends. What about Japan? What about Taiwan? What about Singapore? There's other markets. Australia is a huge market as well. But it's probably going to be difficult for Canadian artists to exist in that market if they haven't done the groundwork here first. So right. I think you kind of have to focus here, but not only here.
Wow. And that is really interesting, just sort of like working through Canada, there's a cap, but then it's actually easier to sort of reach the cap in Canada if you work in the United States. Like there's the halo effect of that market. Makes a huge difference. So my question is about, so you've been creating art since you were a kid, like really young, all the way to now. Like, how is your musical craft, your artistic craft, how has it grown and how has it changed over the years?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is like the maturity and the refinement can be felt. One of the biggest reference points is when I used to perform, I used to yell and I used to really try to convey, and it was just like, when I watch it now, it actually makes me cringe. But it's not like it was bad, but it's just, as I started to grow into myself, I just really fell into my delivery and my tone, which I think is very important. I've always like good at rapping, but I feel like my tone I was trying to convince people of something. Like, I don't do that anymore. I feel like I used to shy away from having a deeper tone of voice. I used to try to make my voice sound more feminine because I thought that's what you're supposed to do.
Oh my gosh.
So, or when I would yell, my voice would naturally come out higher. Like, my tone I feel like it's much more favorable around my speaking tone. So starting to let go of like these society's expectations of you and just actually sounding the way that you sound best when you create your art. That's something that I think is like, when you listen to the music, I sound so much more mature. I would say the songwriting is one of my biggest improvements. One of the things I used to do is it used to matter more if a line rhymed than if it made perfect sense. So it's like, I used to do this thing where like, and I learned to not do this, where I could rationalize that if I thought it made sense, like if I could describe it to someone, then that was good enough. And then I came to a place where it's like, no, you don't want the fan to have to watch an interview to get the song. You want them to, even if the interpretation could go 3 ways, you want them to be able to come to that interpretation on their own. So my songwriting has really refined to where I'm very intentional about what it is that I say and whether or not it is translating to the listener without needing to define it. So now when I make music, I feel like it's very clear what I mean. And there's no like confusing lines or like just kind of intention behind each line and what it actually means. I feel much more confident in my output now because then I know that I've thought everything through. Because when you don't have intention, you might write something that you didn't think about how it would affect someone, or you don't know if you actually stand behind it or if it actually even makes sense. So that's not something that I do anymore. I think my songwriting has like was one of the biggest improvements of my art. And I'd say one of the biggest differences between, to be honest, what people have heard and what they haven't heard, because I'm always working on new music, is a lot of times I think I've been trying to prove that I'm a good rapper. You know, as a female rapper, you know, and as someone who really likes the art of rap and cadences and flow switch-ups and stuff, you know, being able to fit many more bars in is like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, I should say more. I actually think the best songs are the songs that find ways to say things with less words. It's the most difficult thing to do. I find like sometimes rapping, like writing rap songs where you can squeeze all these lyrics in, is harder than writing a pop song, because a pop song, you get like 8 bars of very few words to say the same thing, and it's harder to do that. So I've been working not on pop songs specifically because I'm rapping, but I've been working very much on not writing impressive, hard, difficult cadence rap songs, but more songwriting outside of, do you know what I mean? Like, the new music that I'm working on now, more than ever, is shying away from trying to prove that I'm a good rapper, because let's be real, like, it's all on the internet. You can just go look at it. Like, I've already done that, and I can go back to that. In fact, I can do like covers, remixes, all sorts of things, if people want to know if I can rap. And I can save that for the entities like Sway in the Morning and all of that. In fact, it's nicer if you save it for them, because then people, it's a little treat. But generally, when people want to listen to songs, they don't really care if you're like a great rapper. They care if it's a good song. And I think I'm getting a lot better at letting go of needing to prove my technical flow for the benefit of the record. And it's something that I thought that I was doing on Stock Exchange, and I was beginning to, but I'm just even better at it now. Like even when I think about the latest single that I put out, it's not a very technical song flow-wise. It's not like difficult to rap, but what the song means and what the song is saying and how I've kind of achieved that, like, it's I feel it's much more palatable for a listener. And I think because of that, it's a better song overall for a lot of people than some of the previous songs that I've made, where it's like, wow, she's impressive. It's like, that's not the intention of the art anymore, is to be seen as impressive. The intention of the art is to create art that, like, you're going to want to repeat that song over and over and over and over and over again. And to be honest, the music that I gravitate towards is not always the song with all the bars and everything like that. Sometimes it is, but oftentimes it's songs that I think are good songs. So I think that I'm learning, you know, what my musical strengths are, but what are the weaknesses of that? I can rap lots of words in one line, but I don't want to. And no, not that I don't want to, but I don't need to for every song. So you save it for the right production. And I'd say that's probably the biggest change in my style now, is understanding that the art is not about creating impressions. It's about making impact.
Wow. And that, I love that. I hear that narrative thread from a lot of people who are sort of like, who are really building great careers, great businesses, etc. There is that moment of letting go. It's almost like you're serving the larger story, you're serving the song. And it's less about what you can do as an individual, but serving something larger than yourself. I think that's an amazing way to view it. My next question is mentorship. Like, what role has mentorship played in your career, and who are your mentors now?
I say it's played a big role. I believe very much in that 33% rule, where, you know, 1/3 of the people you network with are mentors for you. 1/3 of them are kind of people that do what you do, and then the other third are people that you mentor. I think that it creates a really good balance. I'm definitely one of those, you know, I'm a Sagittarius. I give advice where it wasn't warranted. So I'm learning to kind of just put that in those, you know, in those relationships where people want that, you know. But my mentors, the people that the 1/3 of the people in my life that mentor me, are mostly my family. I am very close with my family. My sister is like my choreographer, my makeup artist. She's also a performer. Her name is Haviah Mighty. Y'all should check her out. She's one of my biggest inspirations. People will see her and be like, wow, like, you're just as good as Haviah. And it's like, it's the other way around, guys. You might have heard of me first, but it's the other way around. You know, my oldest sister, Alicia Mighty, is a piano player. You may have seen her. She played the Polaris with me. She was on the JUNO stage with me. She's done like the Black Legacy Awards. Very incredible. Like, she was the first of all of the Mighty sisters. Incredible musician, you know. My mom and my dad, my parents, it doesn't matter where the show is. It could be London, Ontario, they're going to do the 2-hour drive. It could be, you know, Quebec, they're going to do the 5-hour drive. My mom tries to come to literally everything. And not only is the support there, but like the acknowledgement, the encouragement. In fact, it's always been there. I had singing lessons. And the reason I'm here is because music has always been encouraged in my household. My manager is also a very big mentor, Christina. She's one of my biggest mentors. Like, I talked to her today about looking at homes. It had nothing to do with the music that I'm making, but like, we're very, very tight knit, and being a good musician goes beyond making good music. It's also being a good person, being a healthy person, being a balanced person, you know, like creating an infrastructure where my mental health gets a place to rest. So when it comes time to that studio session, I can bring the best version of myself to the room. So Christina's a big mentor for me as well. And then I would say just like other musicians, like when I encounter other musicians, it doesn't matter what level the musician is in. Like there are musicians who have achieved less on paper than I have, who when we've connected in the room, that's a mentorship for me based on the conversation that we've had. And maybe it's like kind of a mentorship tenfold, like for both of us or all of us. But I love being in the room with other musicians because their experiences will always differ from mine. They'll always have something to contribute that I can take with me because they do what I do. Their passion runs as deep as mine does, usually. And I find sometimes the most inspiring is connecting with my musician friends or musicians that I don't know, because I always leave with a teachable moment, always. And in fact, I'm also doing a project right now where I'm actually engineering. I'm the executive producer of an album, but I'm not the artist. It's for another artist who I guess maybe I should wait to say it, but she's an incredibly talented artist who currently is doing acting. And I met her through Honey Jam, and she wants to kind of get back into music. So for the last year, while I was doing Stock Exchange and the Junos and all of this, I've been producing this project for her. She sent me all these demos and I've made all these beats and I recorded her vocals last month, and next year we're going to release that. And what I love about that is it allows me to be a part of artistic expression, but I'm not the voice. Like, my voice is not on any of it, but my mindset is very much, it still sounds like me in a weird way because I'm a producer as well. So I've made a lot of these productions, but I've made it as per her vision, not mine. And what I love about that is it allows me to make a different style of music, because I'm a hip hop artist, and she's more folk indie, so it's like this whole different but it's like, but she wants a little bit of the energy, and it's probably part of why we work together on this. So you get a little bit of that, but it's like never, none of them are songs you would ever think that you would ever hear of I Mighty be even a part of, which I love. And it was like great to play that backseat role where it's like, yeah, I don't like that tuning, or I don't like those harmonies, or could you like add this cowbell? Like, just, I'm doing it all as per somebody else's artistic expression in a way that has been mentorship for me, because it's taught me that music doesn't only go one way. I'm so used to making music how I want it to sound, that to work on a project that's entirely based on how somebody else wants it to sound and trust that their vision is true and sound and good has been a beautiful learning experience. So I can't wait to put that out as well.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And like, so this actually takes me to my last question, which is, this chat today has been like a masterclass. Like just hearing about how intentional you are with every part of your career, like that's a huge learning. And that's something that lots of people who are actually entrepreneurs, artists, like I'm a playwright, like that's actually really hard being that intentional about stuff. So my last question is, there are people, if they encounter you and they're starting out, they're on the come up, they're an artist, they're a musician, they're a playwright, they're a writer. What are 3 things that you recommend to young artists to say, hey, listen, if you're going on this journey, here are 3 things that you should definitely always consider as you begin?
Okay. That's a great question. And I must check out your work as well. That's awesome. 3 things. Okay. First thing I would say is literally actually setting goals for yourself and my realistic goals. So don't set yourself up for failure. It's like we set goals outside of work as well. Like I have a goal to get back in the gym. It's not easy and I keep failing, but I'll keep trying. But I try to set realistic gym goals, right? Like if I'm not going right now, going 4 days a week is not realistic, right? So I'll be like, okay, once a week, maybe. Yeah. And then once I can get there, then it's like, maybe my eating goals can like facilitate that. And then maybe I'll have the water intake I should have off of the strength of that. It's all kind of a stepping stone. Don't set yourself up for failure. Start with something realistic. So set a 3 to 5 realistic goals that you're actually going to work towards, but you actually have to be able to work towards it. So it honestly might be like, 30 minutes of writing every other day, right? And then like do it. That might be too much. It might be like, you need to start with 5 minutes. Or when you meditate, and maybe you meditate in the morning, and that's what kind of puts you in the mindset to be able to write. So maybe the goal is not even writing, it's meditating for 5 minutes in the morning. Do you know what I mean? So setting these, start to set intentional but easy enough goals that will make you have to push yourself a bit, but will not take you out of your comfort zone to where your day is going to look and feel different. It shouldn't make you late for work, or sacrifice something else. It should be something that you can start to kind of develop your mindset. I would say having those intentional goals is a very, very big thing, because you can't have intention unless you have intention. So I would say setting goals, but setting realistic, logical, and kind of more simple goals, starting there, but in alignment with what you want, right? That would be the first of 3 things. The second thing would be the people you keep around you. If you have people around you that don't want to hear about the goals that you set, right, then you can't talk about it with anybody. So you can't even inspire yourself throughout the day about the things you've manifested, the seeds you've planted, right? Imagine you plant seeds and you talk to people that don't water the soil. It's counterproductive. So the team that you develop is very, very important. And I think this is a difficult one, because it might mean you're going to lose some friends, or you're going to change how you spend your time. But if you're wasting time with people who don't align with your goals, it's not going to help you get to your goals. It just is what it is. I had friends that I thought were kind of helping with my goals, because we would loosely talk about goal setting, but really we were just smoking weed. We weren't actually doing anything. But there are also other people you could sit down and smoke with them, but you're set. It's really the type of person that they are as well. Having people that are in a similar mindset. So it doesn't mean if you're a musician, you need to hang out with a bunch of musicians. But if I'm a musician and I'm hanging out with someone who's into real estate, and we're sitting down talking, I'm talking about my musical goals. This is someone who has real estate goals. They might be like, and then you could take that, I love that, whatever output, the money you make from that thing, and you can invest it in a property. You can start talking about kind of these bigger picture goals, because their mindset is passion. And the passion might be homes, and your passion is songs. But the reality is, it's just people that have that mindset of trajectory up. It doesn't matter if the trajectory aligns with yours. It just matters that it's up, right? So I have, my team is really important to me, because they reinforce my mindset. So because you will have moments of weakness, lapses of judgment. It's going to happen, right? We're not perfect. We are imperfect beings. So for those bad days, who will pull you back up? If you're the only thing that can pull you back up, well, it's going to be a little bit harder than if you have things and people around you that can also pull you back up. So I say the people you hang around with, that's a big thing. And maybe you need to think about ratios, how much recreation are you doing versus business, right? And if you have a bunch of friends that are willing to go out on Friday night, spend all your money, drink a bunch of alcohol, but those same people won't wake up early the next day and, I don't know, spend an hour, you just have to be mindful of where that time is going, because time is money, and you just, you'll waste a lot of that time. So I'd say team. The third thing, I didn't really think ahead. The third thing, so be actually having your intention, people you keep around you.
Those two are amazing. Those are really good. Those are really good. Yeah.
And you know what though? I'd say the third thing is self-care. And it sounds a little cliche, but
Yeah.
I know for me, if I'm not in a good space, nothing gets done.
Yeah.
Does it? Even now, if I'm not in a good space, even if I know what I'm losing, nothing gets done, because you have to be okay, period. So, all of the 2 things that I said are like, they're not even work specific, right? Like you and your art and stuff, like no one can tell you how to make that art. But if you have the right people around you and you're also setting goals, but then you're not doing well, you can only give a portion of yourself to either of those things, right? Like, and so this kind of goes back to the, like, lightly talking about working out and, you know, going to the gym, or like the goals that you, not even, I wouldn't say so much goals. It would be like, it's like setting yourself up for success. If you wake up in the morning and you have goals, but when you wake up, you feel groggy, you didn't get enough sleep, you're not going to even connect with the people that you should be around. And you're not going to be able to execute the goals that you set because you don't feel good. So it's like, this could kind of be wrapped in with intentions, but the intention point was really specific to career. Have specific career intentions or little things you can do that are specific to, I don't know, if you're a photographer, like I want to open Photoshop up a couple times a week, you know, like that's specific to the art. But then, and then I want to talk to my photography friends. When I go out for dinner, I would like to invite, you know, the 2 people who have that lens I really love. You know, let's talk about, like, you know, our favorite photographers and that documentary I watched. But then that third thing is like, before you went to that dinner, like, did you drink enough water? You know, did you have that chat with your mom or your dad? You know, did you like, you know what I mean? Like those little things, I feel like self-care is so important. I think through the pandemic, like we've learned as well, like self-care is so optimal that you have to make time for it because nobody else will. And I think that that would probably be the third thing that is of the utmost importance, is whatever self-care looks and feels like to you, you have to make time for it, even at the expense of the other goals you have. It's just like, you can't do, because being a musician, especially if you're a musician, like you're selling yourself, like you're selling your likeness. Like every time, if I'm doing an interview, if I'm doing this interview with you, which I am, I have to be, if I'm like upset, if I got in an argument before the interview, my energy's off. So now when I do the interview, the energy you get is off. It doesn't even benefit the career because my energy was off because I got in an argument with my friend. It has nothing to do with the song I wrote. And now you're like, I met Haviah today, but I don't know. Her energy was weird. I didn't really like it. Now I've negatively impacted a connection in the industry. Now I'm not going to see your playwrights. We're not going to be friends, right? So at the end of the day, before everything, you have to be okay. And I think that comes down to like actually making time for recreation too. But I mean like self-care recreation. Like,
yes.
If self-care recreation is having that cigar at the end of the night, then do it. If it's going to the gym, then do it. It's not specifically anyone. It doesn't have to be a specifically healthy thing. It needs to be the things you need to be okay.
Yes.
So and that's the third thing.
And it's everything you're talking about is incredibly reinforcing. It all reinforces. So this actually takes us to the end of the Fireside Chat. I just got a note saying that you have to go. So, Haviah, thank you so much. It was incredible. I learned so much, and you're inspiring, man. Like as an artist, as an artist myself, I got so much out of this, and it just so many tools, so many great tools. But
wow, thank you. I appreciate it. Me as well. Thank you for letting me talk.
No, of course. I loved it. And thank you so much. I know you have to go, but everyone, thank you for joining us. We'll see you the next one. But bye for now.
This has been great. Thank you so much. Bye.